let's move on. We're going to talk about mortgage rates because mortgage rates stay flat as housing market enters a buyer-friendly fall. I'm gonna take issue with the title because I think this is more of a clickbait title than anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a buyer-friendly fall because we have an inventory problem. And the inventory problem is holding up the pricing problem, and the pricing problem is underpinning the affordability issue. And mortgage rates being flat doesn't really work for anybody that is like an inch and a half away from the sidelines to get in the field.
Yeah.
So buyer-friendly. I'm not so sure I'm 100% behind the title, but the point here is that mortgage rates kind of stayed flat. So they had come down a little bit at the beginning of August, and then they kind of hovered. They were like kind of tinkering up and down a little bit here and there throughout the weeks, and then they've kind of flattened out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
I think broadly what this is, without going too hard into the details right at the top, is I think this is just because everyone's waiting on the Fed.
Yeah.
I think they're just waiting on the Fed. The Fed's going to come out with their decision in the middle of September, like we know. Everyone's waiting for it. It was, will they or won't they? And now it's, will they do a quarter versus will they do half?
And
I think they're going to do a quarter.
And last week we had some pretty good economic data come out, but even then I noticed that the market didn't have much movement. It was very small gains, if any, and we would basically go up, come down, and end up pretty even.
That typically means that they were expecting that,
Yeah,
and so it
yeah.
came in as expected. Even if the news was better or worse, if it's what they were already projecting, like privately, kind of off sheet, then
Yes.
they're like, it's what we expected. No big reaction. So for mortgage rates, we're kind of in this conventional sixes, and then governmental high fives, low sixes for VA/FHA.
Yeah.
That's important to know. Home prices, I mean, the claim here is that, okay, mortgage rates flat. We've established that. The other claim here, though, is that home prices continue to drop. But I'm going to not so delicately remind you that them dropping does not mean that they're plummeting and falling off of a cliff. It was not too long ago that our median home price was still in the 300s. Then it crossed into the 400s, and now it was like in the 420s and like low 430s. So for it to go from like 436 back to 429, we're not having some sort of like cataclysmic meltdown in housing price. It's negligible at best.
And I think we're going through that period of like people waiting to see what's going to happen, like you said. And I believe that if there's still sales that are increasing, that's only an indicator that when things start coming down even more, there's going to be a lot more pressure and a lot more buyers looking to get into properties.
That's true, but here's where you have to step back from the talking points and go, well, why are they increasing? Because there's more inventory.
Yeah.
So like if you say, oh, well, house prices are up 30% from last year. Well, duh, there was like 2 homes sold last year. So okay, we sold 3 this year. They're up 50%.
Because and if you think about it, we've seen a slowdown in inflation. The labor market is softening, and that I think creates a runway for houses to continue to go up a little bit higher.
More inventory, which means there's some
more
price
inventory.
pressure, which means they're going to go, oh, home sales are up. Well, of course they're up because they were in the trenches like 12 months ago. So anything better than
It's
2023
better than what it was.
is going to look better. But
Yeah.
And again, they're all kind of pieces of the same puzzle, and we talk about this and go around and around in circles about this because it's important to know that it's not complex, just the interconnectedness of the variables. So house price and inventory and rates and affordability and the amount of homes that go into escrow and pending sales and then final close recorded sales means there's more home sales. So some of it is not a big surprise. It's just you have to be diligent enough and patient enough to look at it and see it for what it is.
Yeah, and I agree with what they say here. I feel that we are going to have a rather more busier fall than other years, just because I feel there's a lot of people waiting for their tier to get there, right? Once they get to the level that, hey, the rates are there, or hey, my person got in, or hey, inflation, that's where it needs to be. People are on the fence. People are waiting, and that's only going to create more pent-up demand as we move into next year. So my prediction is that we're going to end off very, 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 not very busy, but we're going to be busier than other falls and winters. And then leading into 2025, we're going to have a lot of momentum as well for the people that, are waiting for 2025. And as soon as that hits, the first couple of months, see how the market is. Spring's going to come roll around, and there's another wave, and then summer, and then that's where I feel we're really going to start seeing how everything kind of starts, really coming full circle from all the past, data and years.
I agree. I think what happened is our buying cycle is shifted forward by a quarter. I think what's going to happen, what we're already seeing happen in our fall is what we're expecting to happen in the summer.
Yes.
And what's going to happen in the winter is what we expected in the fall, and what's going to happen in January, February, March is what we normally expect in the winter. I think we're kind of like a dial. We just kind of turned it to the right by a quarter turn. And that's what we're experiencing.
I agree.
I think a lot of that has to do with the Fed. I think the economic stuff going on, and I think honestly the election. I hate to say that there's something there, but I think there is, and I think no matter who the winner is in the end, I think home buying is going to be the winner, and here's why. I've overheard and also talked to directly people who are kind of voting for person A and person B.
Correct.
And in their own way, they have a reason to wait, but then they have a reason to buy, and they represent two different candidates. So they're like, oh, well, if he wins, then I'm definitely going to do this because I want to make sure I have my own thing. And then if she wins, I'm definitely going to do that because I want to make sure that da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, so basically everyone, at least in this little tiny survey of a couple people, like they're all saying they want the same thing, but they're still going to wait to see who it is. I don't hear anyone that I talk to saying, well, if person A or person B wins, well, screw housing altogether. No one has said that.
No.
So it's like all attention is going in the same direction, regardless of who the person is who comes out on top.
And I think that's, more than we think, more people than we think that are in that boat.
Right. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
I think it's
definitely
indicative of a larger population of people.
I also just feel because people are so conditioned to say like, hey, they're going to solve our problems, or, so conditioned to, believe that someone's going to come and basically, make everything better, that they put a lot of their faith, their trust in hoping that this is going to make their situation better, when in reality, unfortunately, that's not the case. And it's a huge combination of a lot of other things that's happening around your world that really dictates, the direction of where we're going to go, how you're going to go. And the government is just a small fraction of that.
Yeah, and then you look at the details in this. So I shed this whole opinion and some little experiential anecdotes here. Yeah. But then when you look at like kind of the details, they comment here and talk about like median price and that kind of thing, and people who are now buying at the higher median price, Again, I've made the argument before. Sometimes the way things are written, I think I like the specificity, but there's sometimes a little bit of disingenuous attack angle. And I'm going to give you an example right here, which is for the 14th week in a row, the median list price in the U.S. was less than or equal to what it was in the corresponding week of the prior year in 2024. Well, yeah, duh, of course, there were less homes and the prices were higher. So the natural mathematical consequence of supply and demand is when there's more inventory that comes up, there's more price competition, and then you see subsequent weeks in a row where prices ease up. But again, it's not a cataclysmic meltdown. And here's the other part. They're using 14 weeks. Okay, how many months is that, Brian? 2.5? No, I'm sorry, 3. 3 and a half. 3.5. Sorry, 3.5. Someone's going to be like, Doug said 2.5 in the comments. So 3.5 months. Okay, so 3.5 months out of 36 months. Put it that way. Let's not just say 14 weeks in a row it's slid. Well, okay, well then what context of time? If you want to look back at 36 months, okay, well, it's 3.5 months out of 36. Now it's not that big of a deal, is it?
And then any number that comes out for these next 2 months leading into October, November, that comes out for this year is by far going to be way better than what data we had last year, because October, November were the horrible worst time since rates started going up. So anything you compare, and I'm gonna, we'll circle back to that when the data comes out in October, November, but anything that is a slightly positive or better, it's gonna just alarm everywhere, and you're gonna see it in the headlines. Hey, this year compared to last year, amazing. Oh, this and that. But in reality, if you really look at it from the big spectrum, we're just catching up to what we lost.
And let me add this last little piece of this is that, the whole median price falling 14 weeks, falling or staying equal for 14 weeks in a row. You know what the difference has been? 0.9%. So over this 14-week period, there's been a 0.9% adjustment to what it was a year prior. That's negligible statistically speaking, and at $429,000, you're talking about $4,300. So I'm not really too worried about that. It's just those things where it's like you can say 14 weeks. You could also just say 1 quarter out of, 12 quarters.
I think you called it out, right? It's just the way that they deliver that seems a little bit kind of sus.
Yeah. A little sus.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll use some of that Gen Z
but
language.
Like regular people
that's sus, fam. Facts, no cap.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like people that don't know this, they're like, oh wow, that's really alarming. 14 weeks in a row. Whoa, that's a lot. That's more than 10.
Yeah. 14 weeks. What's 3 years times 52? 156. Yeah, 14 out of 156.
Oh God.
Take that to the bank, guys.